Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of A Spot of Science. I'm Gus.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Sally.
This episode of A Spot of Science is brought to you by Movement Watches. I absolutely love the watch they sent me. It's sleek, stylish, and I always get tons of compliments when I wear it out. Movement was started by two broke college kids that wanted to wear stylish watches but couldn't afford them, so they started their own watch company. The watches start at just $95. At a department store, you're looking at $400 to $500. Movement figured out that by selling online, they were able to cut out the middleman and retail markup, providing the best possible price. Get 15% off today with free shipping and free returns by going to mvmtwatches.com/science. That's mvmtwatches.com/science. Join the movement. It's a good URL, mvmt.com. mvmtwatches.com/science. Fucked it up. Chris, I'm going to read you what's in front of me here.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
One question that's been bugging me for years is why is it that birds can sit on live wires without being electrocuted? Thank you for your time. Love to write.
Well, so, the thing, their feet aren't metal.
Correct.
And
Birds
so-
typically do not have metal feet.
Scientifically accurate statement.
Well, and that's, as we know, is like the most conductive thing.
Metal is the most conductive thing. That is also correct.
Which, toenails.
Toenails.
There.
Done. Cool. We can go now. What, toenails?
Yeah, like they're like things. Their bodies are made of stuff that's not like
So toenails is like the least conductive
least
thing.
conductive. Toenails. They might have,
Well-known
toenails or-
insulator. That's why we coat our wires in toenails.
well, not specifically toenails, but maybe claw nails.
Talons.
Talons.
Maybe the word.
Talons.
What about fingernails? Are they just as good or worse than toenails?
Well, they would work as well, but like
Okay.
the thing is, birds
Hair?
have longer hair. Might work.
It's all keratin.
Sure. Yeah. Hair.
Why can birds sit on live wires? So
So firstly, birds can get electrocuted on wires. So it's not the fact that their feet are such good insulators. The main thing is that they're sitting on a single wire. So each foot is on the same wire. And to completely anthropomorphize, electricity is electrons wanting to move from one potential to another. So there has to be a potential difference. And it's that difference which causes the electrons to flow. On the same wire, there's no potential difference change. And so it's going to take the easiest route. It's just going to go straight through the wire. There's no reason to go into the bird because the bird is the same potential difference as the rest of the wire. So it doesn't go into the bird's body. However, if the bird or squirrel were to reach its leg out to another wire, there's now a potential difference between the two wires and the electricity will flow through the bird and will get electrocuted.
So if I somehow could magically levitate and fly,
Yes.
and I went and I stood on one wire,
Yeah.
I would be okay.
Yes.
As long as I don't touch another wire
Yes.
or come close
The
enough.
problem is, though, with humans and also with, to a certain extent, birds, is the post is also of a different potential difference to the wire. So if the bird was to touch a wire and a post, it would also get zapped because the post is grounded. And the reason why humans so often get electric shocks is we are mostly grounded. Most of the time, we have some part of our body touching the ground, whereas birds don't. And so if we touch a single wire, there is a potential difference between the wire and our feet, and so the electricity will flow through.
So how do they put up the wires then?
They can turn the electricity off.
Okay.
Yeah, the wires don't have the electricity in them to begin with.
But sometimes they do.
I think you realized that as you were finishing the question.
I was like,
But when you're having to operate around wires, you can also be like inside a Faraday cage, for example. So the electricity will flow around and not in you. And you can make sure that no part of you is touching the ground as well.
Which is why in lightning storms, you often hear the advice to stay in your car.
Yes.
That way it'll insulate. As long as you're not touching anything metal on the inside, if lightning strikes it, it gets grounded.
It'll do it. So that is because in that situation, metal is a better conductor than humans. And so it will go around the outside. It will take the shortest, simplest route to get to the lowest potential.
It's like you said, metal is the best conductor, so it wants to stay there.
I'm not sure it's the best conductor.
It's a good one.
It's a good one. But no, there are also super cooled materials. So once you cool down substances to a very small number of Kelvin, then they also become amazing conductors. But yeah, as a general rule, metals are pretty good conductors.
All right, we got a question here. Chris? Since the gravity on Mars is 38% of Earth's, Wouldn't that be catastrophic to the long-term health of humans if it were colonized? That's sent in by Justin.
I don't think so. Because you would just have to exercise a lot more just to keep so your muscles don't atrophy. And then also, I don't know about babies.
What about babies?
I don't know
Just generally, I don't know a thing
I don't know
about
how they would
babies.
handle on Mars, because I don't know if babies would, like, if they need gravity.
Do you think maybe babies would start walking sooner? Like it'd be easier for them to
I bet
walk?
you they would. I bet you they would. I absolutely think they would. Assuming they can come out of the stomach and stuff.
Yeah, the stomach
Because,
for
well,
babies.
I think they would, because I don't know how much babies rely on how much do our internal organs need gravity?
Well, that's the question.
That's kind of the crux
Yeah.
of it, isn't it?
I guess not that much, because people live out in space
Hmm,
for long periods of time, but they have to exercise a lot
they do.
to keep their muscles from atrophying. I think it would be okay. It would just be kind of living in the water for a while.
Okay.
Like if you just, because if you're in the water,
Except
it's
you
like,
don't get pruny on
yeah,
Mars.
but it's like 30% gravity in the water. Well, the gravity, all right, the gravity's the same.
I
in
see
the
where you're
water,
going
but
with that,
the
yeah.
effect-
The buoyancy
Yeah.
helps. What do you think, Sally?
No,
or what
we
do you
wouldn't-
know, Sally?
I know we would not be okay. So
No.
you're talking about people living in space. They're only allowed up for a few months at a time. We're talking about people being on Mars forever, for years. And those people are only allowed up for a certain number of months because then it's so bad for their health. Yes, so a huge part is muscles atrophying, but also bones decaying and atrophying and reabsorbing the calcium, because your bones are primarily there to stop this fleshy mass from just slamming into the surface of the earth. And so if you don't have so much gravity, you don't need such strong bones. And you can, and astronauts do have to do about 2 hours of exercise every single day on the space station to try and reduce the effects of microgravity. But that's still not enough. When they come back, they still have far less muscle mass. Their bones are less dense, so they're more likely to get osteoporosis and brittle bones that are more likely to break. Another problem is that our circulation system is designed to work in gravity. And so for example, the veins in our legs, it's got a one-way valve because it's assuming that gravity is always going to be pulling down. And so your heart doesn't have to pump as hard under gravity, under no gravity, because it's the whole system changes. The question is whether when we're colonizing on Mars, whether we would always be in 38% gravity or whether we would be in bases that have gravity. Because what people are wondering now, because people are considering going to Mars and colonizing it, is could you have like a gravity spa where you go and experience extreme gravity for a short period of time that resets your muscles and your bones?
When you say extreme gravity, do you mean like Earth simulated gravity or even more?
Probably slightly more, not like crazy number of G's, but still more G's. And yeah, so this might be able to reverse the effects, because the problem is that a lot of these things like brittle bones and circulation problems, so when astronauts come back to Earth, they have terrible problems sitting up because their heart isn't used to having to then pump the blood up to their head again, so then they faint and pass out. If they're not having to go back to higher gravity, a lot of these problems won't be such bad problems, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll just become adapted to it, and if they're not fluctuating between the two gravities, it won't be such a problem. But it will still have, and like your sense of balance gets completely messed up, because inside of your ear it's basically like a spirit level, so it relies on gravity to tell you which way up you are. So some of these things can be fixed, but a lot of them, like demineralization and circulation system, firstly, it's just not tested over long periods of times in humans, but astronauts face serious problems on the space station, so it's likely they would face serious problems on Mars.
But the biggest issues are whenever they come back.
Yeah, so the ones that we've sent up into space, we've sent up knowing that they're going to be coming back, and also on the space station, they're under less gravity than they would be on Mars. And so it's quite hard because we're not testing, okay, if we send up a load of humans into space and no gravity, what effect is that going to have? We're saying, okay, you need to do 2 hours of exercise with weights and resistance every single day. So we don't have those data for, okay, what happens if we do send them up and they don't do this regular exercise?
Yeah.
So they maybe eventually over many generations, we could see distinction in humans who live on Mars.
Also-
maybe their bodies will become more adapted.
You
Yeah.
would almost
to reduce
certainly
gravity.
see adaptation there. So if there were some humans that died as a result, so died earlier, maybe before reproductive age, before they got to reproduce because of the effects of gravity, then that would be an extreme selection pressure, and then humans would start adapting to lower gravity, which is quite possible, as long as it's not so extreme that everybody dies.
You know, what'd be interesting too is if a bunch of people go and colonize Mars, and then over like a few hundred years, they almost like become their own species
Yeah.
of human.
Well, that's essentially what would happen, because you are very much reproductively isolating the two populations. There isn't going to be much combination between the two gene pools.
Unless somehow we get travel like that.
Very efficient space travel, but still, there you can have a very small amount of mixing and still have them separated enough that they'll become their own species.
Cool. All right. Well, I think that answers that. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you have any questions you'd like us to answer, just email them to sciencespot@roosterteeth.com, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.